A bit weird talking into a screen and not being able to see everybody else. But good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to join our webinar today. I'm Jason Chin, to those of you that don't know me, and I'm a fellow MOP or CPO, and I'll be chairing today's webinar. Then your panel today is made up of your colleagues. We've all got our cameras off today, but you will get the chance to scroll through the top of the screen and get to see faces that are familiar to you. All of the panelists are members of the Unity group, which I know has been shared, and it's a coming together for our profession. So this group and many others have been working both separately and together throughout the year to try to get our profession and our professional body back on track. It has been a rough year, to say the least, but valuable in that it has opened all our eyes to our needs as a profession. Another wonderful thing to come out of this year is the CPO Forum WhatsApp group, which has finally provided our profession with an effective and, very importantly, responsive communication tool. We hope that this communication platform will serve us well into the future, where we can all interact and share information and opinions. It's very important this, because in the past emails were sent and never picked up and things slip by, whereas the WhatsApp group seems to be very effective. So let's get on with the objective of today. What we aim to do in today's webinar is to inform everyone where we're currently at in our dealings on various projects and issues within our industry. We'd like to share an overview, an overview, not all the detail, on the roadmap we aim to follow going forward. And most importantly, we aim to reach out to everyone to encourage your involvement and future participation. The expectation cannot be on leadership to deliver all the solutions. Leadership in a profession is made up of regular guys, just practitioners that are volunteering their time to give back to the profession. The onus is on all of us to get involved and participate to ensure that we reach our expectations of the profession. There will be a virtual workshop and AGM at the end of November, and what we need to do is take today's information and all get involved in creating the structures for next year, which we can then put in place during the next few weeks and confirm at the AGM. What today's webinar is not about is all the history of what went wrong and why decisions were made, etc., etc. We are done with blaming and accusing. We need to focus on our future, a space where we can make an actual difference. I would therefore like to ask that all questions and suggestions are based on the present and future, and not to continuously delve into the past. We all know what we do not want. Let's now work on the structures to ensure that we get what we do want. On your screen is the agenda for today. Fortunately, you're done with me, and you guys have all had a chance to read through where we're going with this. So I'd like to now call on Grant to talk on the Constitution. Thank you.
The chat about today a little bit is just about the road forward and a little about the strategy and principles that we should or could follow going forward. Everything we're going to discuss today is not particularly new or revolutionary. It has been put forward in the past. I'm sure it's on everybody's minds anyway. But what we're going to discuss today is the roadmap, but it's what is needed to make it work. Because in the past it's been missing three key ingredients, which we'll chat about. So again, before going any further, please note that none of our plans or ideas here, and any of the new ideas that hopefully the attendees of this webinar will put forward, which is coming directly from you attending, nothing can work and nothing is going to be of any value whatsoever unless there is full participation and support after this process. And that's one of the key ingredients that has often been missing. So I'm going to jump into it now. So you'll see on your screen right now, it's just an overview a little bit of the roadmap and the structure that we wish to follow. We don't have to get too stuck into the detail at the moment, but if you want to take a quick look and just to see the different tiers of the structures, and as I said, this is nothing new, but we'll discuss how we would like it to work. So in the blue at the top, you'll see your executive or NEC structures with the chair, vice chair, whether you want to call it president or vice president, that really doesn't matter. All of these things will obviously be discussed and taken on board. Obviously, that blue section is the section that you're going to basically elect your members to, or your leaders to. Then the grey section below that, this is the important area of the projects that we need to tackle. And again, there's a few things inside here. You'll see the coding, categorization, you'll see funders, RAF, COID, RMA, etc., medical schemes, you'll see MOL. So all of these are the things that we're going to be calling upon members to participate in and to give up their time to be part of these, I call them specialist groups, some people call them subcommittees, some call them focus areas, but that is going to be the grey band. And then at the bottom, you'll see in pink, the implementation. So where we're going to have Secretariat Administration, assistance with running our association, with putting these kind of things together, running our membership system, practice tools that a lot of you are now affay with, where we will be hiring coding specialists, legal specialists, and that is where the association will differ from an administrator. So if we carry on and see, what does the association need? So we need inclusivity, transparency, and accountability. And each of these is what has been missing for a while, for a number of reasons, which right now, like Jason said, we're not going to get stuck into, but this is what needs to happen. Everybody needs to have a home. Everybody needs to know how things work. And the people who are in control or were given mandates have to be accountable to all our fellow members. Then the next thing, and this is probably one of the most important ingredients that has been missing, is proper leadership, where there's going to be proper commitment, and this also includes sacrifice. A leader needs to act timelessly and continually. Someone who you elect to any of these positions cannot just sit there and occupy a seat. They have to be constantly at work for us, the members. And then the next big thing, interactive communication. Everybody's been going about communication. We know that communication is a problem, but we want it to be interactive. And that's a great thing that the forum has brought to this mix, is the interactivity of that WhatsApp group. Then representation. This can mean many things. So we want to have geographical representation. So again, the nice thing about lockdown, it's forced us to go onto the internet, forced us to have these kind of online seminars and that. So it doesn't matter. We don't have to have subcommittees all on our doorstep, close to where the exec are situated. So it can represent everyone around the country. We want it to also be demographic. So again, it also needs to represent the color of our skin, our gender, our areas of specialty within the profession. And basically the home means this association needs to be the home that we can come to, and we know it has our best interests at heart. So all this comes down to participation and commitment and consistent action from members. This is again what's been missing in the past. Hasn't been participation for various reasons. Some of it was the fault of us as members, we didn't get involved, and some of it was the fault of the association. For sometimes hands were put up, emails were sent to offer assistance, but never taken up. But that is going to change. But the biggest thing we need to change is that everybody needs to roll up their sleeves and get stuck in to make this thing work. So we need greater focus and participation in key areas. So we've spoken about the coding, the billing, etc., etc. That's going to be that gray area on that first slide I showed you. And this is where we need specialists within our member community and those with experience to come in and help, and to bring on board those with no experience to teach them the ropes so that we can continue going forward. Then the next thing the association needs is specialist assistance. And that's the difference between having an administrator and having an association. the association needs to provide us with legal counsel, needs to provide us with coding specialists. We've got NHI around the corner. We need to be prepared for that. We can't be caught. We can't be caught with the pants down again when NHI suddenly gets thrust upon us. And we're always having problems with PMBs. So again, we need people as specialists, and we need to be able to pay these people. And hence, this is the work that the association needs to do going forward. The next big thing, it's been spoken about a lot, but to have a full-time chief operating officer for our association. Again, it cannot be that one of us as leaders who are full-time practitioners run the association. It simply cannot work. If I was asked to run the association, it cannot work. I need to quit my practice to be able to do it, to be able to give you the commitment and the time needed to keep the association moving forward the way it should. So what we also propose is that we have a COO, which hopefully could be an existing CPO that is employed full-time by the association to be its representative and coordinator. And again, we need membership to be able to support this, to be able to afford to hire such a person. Okay, so going forward now, it's going to a little bit about the roadmap and the structure. So we've asked, and this is what you're used to, that everybody elects their leaders, which I think this needs to be a very carefully thought out process, so that we have the right leaders in the right place. So let's just call this our executive committee, or NEC, it really doesn't matter what you want to call it. From that, as usual, you're going to have your vice president or vice chair, and then you're going to have your president or chair. Now, it's suggested that we should have these on 2-year rotations, and this is particularly for continuity in projects. So what we would like to happen is that the chairperson would step down after 2 years and head back into the exec and coach the next person I identified as vice president or vice chair. So there's a constant feedback system, as you will see with this arrow over here. Then going forward, we would like to have these SGs or specialist groups, as I mentioned, which is a gray area on the previous slide. These are going to be the MOLs, the coding, the PMBs, the legal, whatever it might be. And what needs to drive that are all these little circles at the bottom, which would be all of us as ordinary members. We need to be pulled up into these triangles. This is where participation is required. So these specialist groups need to be made up of a mix of experience and youth. So I like to call upon all the, may I say, the old farts out there who've been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years in this profession to fill that line of experience. And then we need the young bloods below that. The reason why we want that is because there can never be a situation again where there's discontinuity. What happens when you elect a new board and new subcommittee? There's a period where there's stagnation, then nothing happens because someone's learning the ropes. How we want the structure to work is that there's never a period where one takes the foot off the gas. There has to be continuity the whole time and a constant feedback system. So again, what will happen is that once a person leaves the EXCO, they go back into the general membership and they can again feed these systems. And so we're going to have this constant flow, or constant eddy of talent and knowledge that's going to flow around. And hopefully there's not going to be a delay in getting projects done anymore, because when new people come in, they have to learn the ropes for the first 6 to 12 months again. So just coming back to the specialist groups quickly, as I mentioned, the nice thing about the way lockdowns forced us to operate is that we can have representation. So we want these specialist groups to be made up of members from every corner of the country, representing every demographic and geographic and everything else to form part of that. So we have true representation in all these areas of specialty. So then we need to look, so what now? How do we proceed? So the first part is debate, discussion, ideas, and interest. That I know has been happening on the forum. And it's been happening the whole year, and particularly this last week again. And this has happened today. Today we're debating, discussing, putting ideas and showing interest. So we tick that block. The next thing we need to do is decide, are we going to have unity or not? So we have to have unity. There's no ways we can achieve any of this without coming together as one solid force. the repercussions thereof are just huge if we do not get the show on the road as one unified body. So then if we are in agreement after this webinar, after the short period of time afterwards, we need to have support and input on the structures. We need to fine tune it and move on. The next thing, you've all heard me beating the drum about the Constitution. We then need to write up the rules that are going to guide us going forward. So again, it's to be a refreshed Constitution. And just to let you know, we did put a call out a few months ago. Participation was pretty poor. We had four respondents to our call to look at the Constitution, and actually one of the four wasn't even a practitioner. So there were only 3 practitioners that actually looked at our Constitution. So again, if we can ask, that's just not good enough as membership. As far as the support goes, we need to get more involved. So volunteers and nominations for leadership and participation are what's required next. So during the course of this webinar and in the next week, we need there to be discussion about who do you want in what position. We'd like members out there who've got experience to volunteer. Once you look at those specialist areas, to either, if you want to stand for executive, if you want to stand for specialist groups, we'd also like all the members out there to make nominations if you know people that have got experience or can offer something. Now, I mentioned experience, but it doesn't necessarily have to be experience. As I mentioned, we want to have the old farts and the young bloods. So if you're young and you're inexperienced, but you've got energy, we want you. When I say we want you, we actually, the association or our profession needs you. So we'd like you to stick up your hand. Once we've fine-tuned this roadmap and we know who's going to fill what bubbles on that slide, we need to head off to our AGM, which is set down for the end of November. And this is where we need to have adoption of these plans. So the day after the AGM, we are then hopefully able to hit the road. That's where we come to implementation. So everything discussed here and the next couple of weeks, it needs to be implemented very quickly after this AGM. We need membership. None of this can happen without support. Support as in becoming a member, support as in providing expertise, time. And then the last point there is to get stuck in. We can't become members, we can't have our say and then go and hide. We need to all put our heads above the parapet and be ready to be and be ready to participate. So again, just going forward for this association, unity and collaboration between groups is required to reform this one body that we're after. We need to give the association back to the members. It needs to be a professional home, something that we are proud of, and we know that this association has our backs. We then need to address all the pressing issues, coding being one, and this is where the urgency needs to be placed. Obtaining commitment and accountability. Again, this comes from the leaders, our exec, and then from the special interest groups, but also from the members, just keeping the pressure on everybody to perform. Transparency and interaction or communication are required. We all know what's been the story with SAOPA. Communication's always been the Achilles heel, but also transparency. There should be nothing to hide. There's not an old boys club, the association. It should be free for anybody to have access to any sort of information, because it is your association. Hence I said it has to be given back to the members. Then the important thing is succession planning and representation. Again, the succession planning is important. As I mentioned right from the beginning, no longer can we be wasting time between years of transitions between boards, between special interest groups. We need to clean up and get action internally by removing distractions. So believe it or not, the NEC this year has had one heck of a lot to clean up. Jason mentioned it's been one hell of a year. And yes, it's going to continue to be, but there has been a lot of cleaning up. But what needs to happen is that we need to do things correctly. This year, there's been a lot of distractions. So a lot of the projects that we signed up for cannot take place the way we would have liked to, because we were dealing with distractions. So going forward, whoever's going to be leading this association needs to be able to focus and have a clear palette to work off. Distractions need to all be sorted out and put in the past. And then the last thing is just obviously to reconnect with our members. We need to attract back our lost members and find our new members. We need numbers to drive this thing. Hopefully, if we can fill all these bubbles, that's what our association is going to look like going forward. So we just get on quickly to our leadership and participation. So we need our leaders to drive the process. In the past, one of the mistakes made, and that was one of the key ingredients that we're missing, is that an administrator or a contractor was hired, but they were not being driven or pressed by leadership. So the leaders need to drive the processes. We cannot sign a contract and allow administrators or contractors to look after our association. It does not belong to them. They assist us. It is us who have to drive it. And that is one of the big mistakes being made in the past. We need service level agreements in place, and these need to be watertight. Again, no longer can it happen that service providers are hired without SLAs being signed. That is just ridiculous. You wouldn't do it in your own business. You wouldn't buy a house without a contract. I don't know why an association can be expected to run without these service level agreements and accountability to be in place. So leaders need to include and use members. Again, it can't be like I like to call it an old boys club, where the leaders are locked away somewhere and there's no communication between the people with the feet on the ground. There has to be a communication the whole time, and we need to make use of the members. There's a vast amount of talent and knowledge amongst ordinary members. So even if you aren't on a specialist interest group or anything like that, there's still a huge contribution that an ordinary member can make, and leaders need to be aware that they need to make use of that. So participation by members is paramount. So no longer can we shout from the sides. I was one of those guys shouting from the sidelines. Then I got put onto the NEC, and I got shouted at from the sidelines. But I also realized that shouting from the sidelines is good, but when it comes to asking for help, then you need to be prepared to stick your hand up. And again, I come back to the Constitution. Nothing has happened with that. So we can't shout and scream when we're not even prepared to read the boring things and sort out the stuff in the background to get our structures correct. So without the Constitution, we cannot continue to the specialist groups or committees. We need to get those rules in place. We need to read it. We need to volunteer. We need to participate. So just remember, this is your future. Don't simply rely on others. You need to get involved. Don't rely on the leaders, because you're placing your entire future in their hands. When I say that, your livelihood, your profession. That's one reason why, even through all the turmoil this year, when the easy thing to do is just to step down, I'm going to say, well, what next? Who's going to look after it? Who's going to have a say? You need to also get involved to have the exact same input. Okay, quickly, lessons. No longer can leadership hand responsibility to administrators or contractors. We covered that. No longer can there be a lack of member participation. Covered that. No longer can there be a lack of transparency. As I said, there needs to be full access to any sort of information. There's no longer going to be an echelon or hierarchy within an association. It is all one group. No longer a lack of communication. Thanks again to CPO Forum, put together a wonderful WhatsApp group. It's been done in other professions, and it works incredibly well. You'll see it's not only to discuss serious matters, but to handle day-to-day issues as well, and just to create a good hearse amongst practitioners. And by the way, we'd like to, the association going forward needs to adopt that communication portal so that it continues to run in that vein. And then no longer can there be division. We simply cannot afford, we don't have the numbers. And with all the changes going on in our industry, no longer can we be divided. We need to get together, and we need to push in the right direction. As I said, no longer can there be a lack of accountability either. And distractions, please. The distractions. So yes, the division has also resulted in distractions. But hopefully if we can put all of those aside and we can all scrum in the right direction, there will be none of that going forward. So the last thing is to say, this is purely a call to action. We cannot sit here and have a chat about a roadmap, a way forward, and what we need to do. We need everybody, please, you need to get involved. You need to stick your hand up. No matter how great or small your contribution, it needs to be taken on board. And it also can't be periodic. It needs to be consistent. Thank you again.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So we'll just be discussing creating unity, sustaining unity, and the benefits of unity. So when it comes to creating unity, we don't think creating unity is very difficult. Most CPOs are very helpful and friendly people that communicate. The communication that we see on the forum was only the tip of the iceberg. What actually happened in the background, the communication and the discussions and the support was astonishing. So every time a question went out, there were a few responses within seconds, and what you don't know is the people who helped stated that this is amazing and they have never seen this kind of support before. So the conclusion from communicating with literally hundreds of CPOs was that a lot of CPOs are unsure of how to do many things, and especially billing. So another conclusion was that CPOs don't know just how much they are worth. If you advise a CPO on how to bill for their time or charge a markup that will sustain their practice, they have no idea what to do. And in a lot of cases, they do not know what they are billing for. So furthermore, when the COVID pandemic hit, many practitioners did not know how to move forward and how to practice. So in light of the above, when information like PPE protocol, informed consent documentation, and other relative information that address daily concerns were readily available, practitioners became better informed and shared information more readily, and this made them more enhanced and capable of sharing this information. So yes, practitioners started helping themselves by helping others. In some cases, we got queries, and the only thing we had to do was refer one practitioner to another practitioner, and we knew that this practitioner already dealt with a similar problem and had the ability to assist. So in some cases, someone would phone us, and all we had to do was, for example, say, phone Hendrik Mankies and he'll help you, and he actually did. So that was wonderful, and that's just an example of unity and the power thereof. So to get back to the topic of creating unity, in our opinion, it's quite simple. Just supply the industry with a platform that they can call home, a space they can interact with an association and with each other, and the unity will take care of itself. In fact, we should have done this years ago. If this communication can be expanded to all relevant information, for example, funder interaction, technical tips and tricks, billing guidelines, and all other important subjects, we believe that we will be on a winning wicket.
Carry on. Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm going to carry on. So we were talking about unity. It was creating unity, sustaining unity, and the benefits of unity. I've decided the sustaining and the benefits of unity is a little bit interwoven, so I'm going to deal with those two together. We believe that a platform like this can only be sustained if the information is relevant and current. We quickly learned that working with so many practitioners that the industry is not stupid. You cannot feed the industry nonsense and expect to get away with it. And the industry is now more informed than ever. Whoever takes the lead or whoever is going to join in us going forward, they should know that, and they should actually know. Sorry, my chair is falling. They should actually know what they're doing, and they should know what they're talking about and who they're talking with. Because these are families and patients. These are practitioners with families and thousands of patients. So to get back to my part, it was the sustainability and the benefits of unity. So I'm going to call them as we go through them, and the things that we have learned. One thing we've learned a lot about, I think it's very positive, is collective intelligence. That is where we started talking to everybody. Now, if you run an association and you're one or two or three people that make the decisions, you only have so much input. But once we started to talk to everybody, it is amazing, and Grant also said it, and I think you too, is how clever everybody is. As everybody starts working together, we call it collective intelligence. We get so much information from the floor. Just for instance, something like clicks. So what are they selling in different towns, for instance? You know, you just get it from all over. That is a benefit. Another benefit of Unity is combined winnings. Whenever somebody wins, and we've had it quite a few times, if somebody wins at the funder, for instance, or the medical aid, CMS or HPCA, when they win, they started to share it with us, and we could share it with other practitioners. And that made such a big difference. One of the things that we see must happen to sustain the Unity, because it's a very fine balance, you have to sustain it. To sustain the Unity, and that is something that Rian Knight was passionate about a while ago, was mediocrity. And that is, you know, it's a little bit of a touchy subject, but it really goes about the people that lead us and takes us forward. They must know what they're doing. They must know what they're talking about. And we are not victimizing, but you know, you can't have a practice in a garage and then step out and go to discovery and try and represent me. You can't work, have a practice in an industrial area next to a motorbike shop and think you're going to go into to tell me exactly what I must get. The guy that practices on Melkbos-Strand, or the guy that practices in Erasmuskloof or in Rosebank, those people have different turnovers. So you're going to have to look at everybody and make sure everybody is happy. And if you run a practice at a higher standard, those people will have to be compensated at a higher level. That is very important. Yes, another thing for sustainability was the mushroom effect. We spoke about mushroom, where you keep guys in the dark and you kind of feed them on manure. And members are dependent on information that they need. And they're dependent on transparency. So we can't have that anymore. Also, what we see as something for sustainability is feedback. Whenever a member has a question or a query, we must get back to them within 48 hours. You cannot ask something and then you wait weeks and months to get an answer. So we're going to have to address this in our future association. Funds, yes, Grant also spoke about it. We're going to have to start paying the people that actually do this. If it's the association or the members working there, those people are working for free, and as they are working, especially when your top practitioners put their time and effort into something like this, you know, we're going to have to find a way to compensate them. So what Grant says is we're going to have to build an association, we're going to have to get funds together so we can actually pay these people, and we don't have to do it for free. And that's the only way you're going to get the top practitioners to help. The feedback, in a way, you know, you can say that, you know, it is your problem if you don't give us feedback. We've asked you, but see, the problem is that practitioners are all busy. So you're going to have to force them a little bit. If you put a question out there, you must have a secretary or a mop or somebody that works for you that can post those people and ask them. Because practitioners are busy. If you want them to all participate, you will have to push them a little bit. Participation of stakeholders. Yes, participation with stakeholders. It's a problem in the past, but the association will have to interact properly with people like TIT, with HPCSA, with suppliers, keep you up to date with events. For sustainability, that's going to be important. Your NEC or your non-executive committee or your national executive committee or your board or whatever is going to be called in the future, if you are on that board, you are going to know you can't be there for a glory trip. You're going to know you are here to do some work, and you're going to have to spend at least a few minutes per day of your time doing this. You cannot hand it over to anybody else. And if you're not prepared to take the time and to do this, then you shouldn't be on that board. I feel very strong about that. And then practitioner involvement. Yes. Practitioner involvement. We've spoken about that you can't have an administrator that goes to a funder for you. administrators don't do coding for you. But I want to give the example of the quota submission, the silicone submission that Eugene recited this year. Now, I can't remember how many pages it was. How many pages was it? It was 20, 30, 40 pages. And if I look at that and I patch to that silicone specialist stuff, I can't do that. If they ask me to do it, I can't do it. So how can you expect, like a Dr. Fatsal, who's a medical doctor, to go and represent you? How can you expect Dion to develop coding for you, for that matter? How can you expect any administrator to do this for you? We're going to have to do it ourselves. And we're going to have to need the input of the top practitioners. And you have to structure our association in such a way that your top practitioners can give their input there. Yeah. Yes, and we think that's unity. We think in these ways we can, in actual fact, we can create unity, we can sustain unity, and we can reap the benefits of unity. Thank you very much.
There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. If I have to follow the agenda, I'm just going to go ahead. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bradley Beckley, and I've been tasked with discussing billing and coding. So I'm going to hopefully shed a little bit of light for you guys today with regards to coding and billing, and hopefully make your lives a little bit simpler going forward. And hopefully this will help you guys to bring things together and to see some light at this seemingly ever dark and gloomy tunnel. I just need to inform everybody, this is purely a prelude to the presentation that I'll be doing. At the upcoming AGM, we'll be doing a little bit more detail with regards to this. So please, off the bat, I'd like to request that should anybody have any questions with regards to coding, or if you've got any problems with regards to billing, feel welcome to forward the questions. We'll answer as many as we can, but hopefully at the presentation that we do at the AGM, that we can try and present and tackle as many of those questions as we possibly can. All right, there's a couple of things with regards to coding and billing, and I asked myself the question, why was I asked to do this? And it's not because I'm an expert in the field, it's because I found myself in a bit of a desperate situation that needed to be resolved. I, as everyone else, had enough of only being able to build the 2017 tariff guides. I had heard of nappies and been told that it was the way forward. However, was too scared to take the plunge and to implement it. And then in January of this year, I embarked on a complete redo of my practices, billing structures and processes. And I have to admit, I haven't looked back. And hopefully this will help you guys get through that same process and hopefully make that teething time and the teething problems as little as possible for you, and make your transition seamless and effortless, which it could possibly be. I'll hopefully be able to provide you with a few pointers, a bit of explanation, a couple of ideas on how to embrace the process and to make it yours. This is an important point and brings me to the most commonly asked question to SAOPA, and that being, where's my tariff guide? Now, the answer to this question is actually quite simple, and it's still there, it's just in a completely and totally different form. You need to take the available structures and you need to implement them now in your own practice in a way that will work for you. And I'll hopefully be able to provide some clarity on how to do that. I'll also be addressing a few lesser known facts with regards to billing and billing structures. So to begin, I need to separate the difference between coding and billing. So there were a few urgent action items that have been on SAOPA's list over the past year. One of the main ones being coding. There was not a meeting or discussion had where coding was not mentioned. It was during the past year that everyone on the NEC realized the true importance of experts and their guidance. Our frustrations of not moving forward with regards to the coding project could be seen in our numerous attempts and countless hours spent staring at Excel spreadsheets and flowcharts and diagrams, trying to make some form of headway and trying to make head and tail out of the confusion. And our efforts were not futile, since we made headway slowly but surely. But the complexities of the task at hand became evident, as well as the requirement of active involvement from the entire industry. So our frustrations led to the ending of service agreements, as you are all aware of, as well as the building of new bridges and relationships. As mentioned, the assistance of experts with the input from association members has never been more important than now. So a call to action will be made for the coding project, and I hope to see many volunteers with this regard. It is truly a mammoth task, but probably one of the most important tasks that we as an association need to be heading over the next year or the next couple of years. So where are we now and what do we do at present? So we currently have a list of professional codes and their RVUs. I'm not going to delve into RVUs now. I'll discuss this in a little bit more detail with the coding seminar just before the AGM. But I am going to be focusing on the professional codes for now. So the problem with the current coding system is just a lack of clarity and outdatedness. So the lack of credibility of this list does not afford us the opportunity to do a blanket tariff adjustment. I'm not going to get into the details of the issues. We are aware of the past, and we understand that why the funders have rejected our current listing or the previous listing, and this has forced us to move on. So the lack of the credibility of the list just means that we need to find a different system. And fortunately with NAPI codes, albeit a little bit daunting, the system and the possibilities are there. So what do we need? We need to present a detailed tariff structure with relevant billing rules and guidelines to funders. These funders then need to be informed and made aware of what it is and isn't included in these codes. So there are currently references with regards to inclusions that do, however, desperately need updating. A good example of such an scenario would be a partial silicone and prosthesis, and Heinrich alluded to it now in his previous talk. But Eugene really made a truly awesome submission with regards to the manufacturing and the complexity of this whole process. And included was detailed indications of manufacturing, timelines, specialist equipment required. And this explanation is an example of what is needed to be done with the professional fees. We can then take this information and we can then present this to funders and substantiate our submissions with clinical backup. This is where our strength lies. And at the end of the day, this is where we should be focusing all our efforts. All the funders are seeing at this stage as a one-liner at allegedly a very inflated or high cost. So this needs to be broken down and explained to them. We have experts in all our fields, as Heinrich has said, and we will be calling on all of them at some time for assistance. I can't do everything. I have my specialities, the same as what Heinrich has his, and the same as what Eugene does. But we need to tap into this wealth of knowledge that we have within our profession. So this whole process needs to be led by an expert, and this person needs to guide us on the correct path to make it as simple and as effortless as possible. We are currently negotiating with a really knowledgeable expert, and hopefully you'll be able to meet them fairly soon, who will be helping us on this road to let's call it, for lack of a better word, recovery. So in summation, new codes and updates are coming. There are, however, focus points that can be addressed for now. And to just explain it a little more, I'm going to give you guys just a slight example with regards to coding and a few of the dilemmas and the problems that we're sitting with. So if we had to do a current quotation for a prosthesis, for example, I'm going to use hypothetical figures at this stage, but I'm sure most or all of you have been in a scenario where you quote, for example, 200,000 Rand for a prosthesis, and the funder only approves 50,000 Rand for that prosthesis that you did the quotation for. My question to you today remains, how does an increase in tariff improve this scenario? And the answer is quite simple, it doesn't. At the end of the day, although the tariffs are a problem, the issue comes with the coding is not descriptive enough. And we need more detail within the coding as well as the clinical motivations. And with that, we can then go to the funders, we can present this, and we can convince the funders to close the gap from the 50,000 Rand authorization to the 200,000 Rand authorization that we have requested or that we have quoted to the funders. They need more transparency as far as that is concerned. At this stage, they are seeing one-liners and they are not realizing the bigger picture behind it. So it's really time that this needs to be taken to task. And that is part of the big coding project going forward, where we're going to need everybody's involvement. So for now, I'm going to talk about the big elephant in the room that everybody's a little bit scared of, and that is NAPI coding. It's something that I've been doing for a while now. I've done quite a bit of research and I've got quite a good understanding with it. So I'm going to try and explain it and hopefully make the transition a little bit simpler for you guys. So in a nutshell, what we need to do is we need to implement the NAPI coding system together with the professional codes. It is important to understand that your professional codes, the inclusions, you need to know what is excluded, as well as your ability to charge certain manufacturing codes and quantity limitations. It's important that you realize that you can't charge 40 be it lab fees for manufacturing a prosthesis because you're a little bit slower than what your opposition is. You need to stick within the billing rules and guidelines. These we will also be tasked with designing as we go along, but there are a lot of international standards now that we will baseline those specific charges and quantities on. It is important that this process remains cost neutral. And this, this is a buzzword which has been a little bit concerning to me, and it's important that everybody understands the meaning of cost neutral. So during our engagements this year with a lot of the funders, they keep on making emphasis on the term of cost neutral. And what that means is if we do the transition to NAPI codes, the invoiced amount at the end of the day for a procedure must remain the same. So in other words, it can't suddenly, because you're moving across to this different system, be highly inflated. It does not mean that if you've been charging 2017 rates for so many years that you're not entitled to adjust your prices to current fees. That you are entitled to do. But we cannot start charging additional codes just because we're doing split billings now, or we're not doing split billings, we're adding in extra codes and we are adjusting our rates to the NAPI fees. So we need to be aware of this when presenting it to funders. I want to delve into a little bit with regards to NAPI now. And one question that pops its head up often is the question of, or the statement that a NAPI code is a cost price. And at the end of the day, the answer to that is very simple, and it is yes, they are. But there's a big but. A NAPI code is what they call a single exit price, which is provided by a supplier to Medicredit. This is not something we should be involved in. This is between the suppliers and Medicredit. So the suppliers will provide their wholesale price to Medicredit, who will then provide it to our practice management software providers. So this is at the wholesale price. What we will need to realize then is that you need to use your negotiation skills as a practitioner and your relationships that you built up with your suppliers over years to procure and to get a better deal. These better deals, excuse me, could be based on various factors such as volumes, settlement discounts. You can even bribe them if you want to, but just as long as you get a better deal from your supplier at the end of the day. And this will immediately provide you with a startup margin on your NAPI code. Then there's a big thing that a lot of people are not aware of, and it's called an ethical markup. Now, the ethical markup is accepted by funders, and it's a justified margin to cover certain carrying costs and practice expenditures that we all do have. Now, the ethical markup varies within the various funders, but I can give you on average, you can do your own research with regards to the funders, but they vary between 30 and 35% that you are entitled to, that the funder is prepared to reimburse. So you'll take your NAPI code, and if you've got with your practice management system, there's a place where you can add in your ethical markup, which is usually between 30 and 35%. Here's the big thing, and this Heinrich also spoke to about a little bit earlier. If you have a practice, say for example in Sandton, or you've got a practice in Pofadder, your practice expenditures differ. And this is where this ethical markup will allow you to adjust your expenditure or your charging or your bill out rate in your practice, and you can do it yourself. So you can modify your ethical markup. What is important is that you must be able to substantiate or justify the reason for changing that markup. So if your rental is higher, you're entitled to charge more on the ethical markup. If you're in Pofadder, you can't tell them that you're being charged 100,000 Rand for rental for your 4 square meters in a month. So as long as you can substantiate it and justify it, you are entitled to adjust that markup. What one needs to realize that the funders still have a designated reimbursement rate. This means that if you adjust your ethical markup higher, the funders are still going to pay that fixed rate, and your patient is going to be liable for a co-payment. All right. This is not split billing. Split billing is illegal, but they are liable for a co-payment. The good thing is these days, if you're using your NAPI codes, you will notice in your remittance advices from Discovery, for example, in the old days where they used to turn around, neither the fund nor the patient is liable for this account. They are now saying that the fund will pay their portion and the patient is liable for the balance of the account. So you can then hold your patient liable for that amount. And if you're seeing patients in Sandton, usually those patients are come from such a background that they can afford to pay that slightly higher rate that you are charging in your practice, which is understandable because your practice overheads are more at the end of the day. So in summary with nappies, a nappy is a SEP, which is a single exit price which is listed by MediCredit. You can then add your ethical markup, and to that you then add VAT as well, and that's going to give you your billing rates. But that billing rate is individual for every single practice, and you can make it up as you go along and as required. So just to reiterate, it is therefore a cost listed price that is, however, not what you bill. Okay. There's a couple of other things that are crucial with regards to billing at the end of the day. I'm not going to go into too much detail with regards to that now. The practice management systems, if I could make a call and appeal to everybody out there, it's to please get a decent practice management system. There are quite a few on the market out there. During the discussion that I'll be having just prior to the AGM, I will discuss this in far more detail. I will probably give a few examples, and I'll make it evident, or I'll try and emphasize what is important about a practice management system. What questions should you as a practitioner be asking? What should the system be able to do? Unfortunately, billing has moved on. It's no longer in line with it's no longer possible to use a simple Excel spreadsheet to bill. It's too complicated, it's too detailed. You need to spend the money. I would almost say it's more important than your rental and your location. Get a decent practice management system. A few advantages that you'll have, for example, is the nappy codes are then live on the system. So you never need to update your systems again. If there was a price increase on a specific product yesterday because of an exchange rate difference, that nappy code is immediately adjusted. And this is automatically brought through to your practice without you having to worry about it. So that's just an example of what your practice management system should be doing for you. Other things that are really important with regards to billing at this stage, and this is a transition that we need to make, is that we need to move away from the one-liners. We need to realize at the end of the day, and this is something that I'm trying to harp on, we need to be paid for our professional fees or for our professional services. We need to be paid for our knowledge. So at the end of the day, yes, we may be fitting a tennis elbow splint, but we should be paid for treating an epicondylitis. We should not be paid for fitting a tennis elbow splint. So I would like to be charging a tennis elbow splint for X price, but I should be charging a professional fee for all the advice and the guidance that I've given my patient. And that is where my reimbursement should be coming from. So try and bill more than just the one-liner. That is a really important point. The next big thing, there's a couple of illegal billing practices. I'm not going to touch on that now. I'll do that more in the prelude to the AGM. But there's one big thing that we'd like to share with you. There's a couple of practices that have made this transition to nappies. I want to give you an example why I say that a lot of people haven't made the transition. We got a few stats from one of the funders the other day. Out of 50,000 line submissions in a year, only 1,000 of them were nappy codes. The rest was still running on the old A&L tariff list. So please, if I can implore you guys, we need to change that. We need to get it in line with where we should be. You will all benefit at the end of the day. I know it sounds daunting, but we as an association are going to embark and endeavor to help you as much as we can through the process. What we have discussed and we have decided to start is we are going to be hosting a billing workshop. This billing workshop, Angela, if you could maybe run the poll, we're going to do a couple of polls. If you would firstly would you be interested in having a billing workshop? If you guys could just answer yes, no, or not sure on that. And the idea behind the billing workshop would be to help you through this process. There is no reason why you should have to bump your head the way I had to on certain things. There is no reason why you should be battling with a 0201 prefix to an API code, for example. If you are battling with a specific practice management system, I've got an incredible support base of administrative ladies behind me that really are knowledgeable. a lot of the guys in the NEC and other practices have also got incredible support bases, and we're willing to provide you guys with this information and this help. So we'll help you step by step through this whole process of transitioning through. So if you're interested, this would not necessarily be for MOPs. This would be more for your building departments, but you as MOPs are more than welcome to sit in to understand the workshop. And the idea behind this would be that they can then elevate any concerns or any problems that they would have, that they could discuss with each other. The chance that they could sort it out internally is almost 90%. However, should there be a problem, and let's say there's a common denominator, and let's say MedScheme, for example, has had a problem with a division of their medical aids. This would be apparent in the workshop group, and they could then escalate that information to whoever is overseeing it on the NEC, and this can be brought directly to the funder's attention through the association. So I think at the end of the day, it would make everybody's lives a lot easier and a lot simpler. So if you are, and I see at this stage the poll is pretty impressive that everybody's interested in it. The next poll that we'd like to run is just the frequency with regards to a possible workshop like that. Do we do it monthly, every 3 months, or more regularly? This will be an interesting poll to see. We've got our opinions with regards to it. Initially, I think the demand will be quite great, and it'll become progressively less as we go through. But we can base this on demand at the end of the day. So I hope this helps. It's a little bit of information. Hopefully, I'll give you a little bit more before the AGM, and hopefully, it's shed some light and helps you guys to at least pave the path and the way forward. That it's not as daunting as what everybody thinks, and we are here to help you as an association as much as possible. And your association membership fees will include the workshops going forward. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I think I'm next on the agenda. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I think well done to everyone. I'm very encouraged by the conversations, and I think the progress following a lot of engagements and communications that have taken place over the last 3 or 4 months. So thanks again. I think a lot of the elements I was asked just to speak on leadership, but I think most of that conversation has been had, and many of the presenters before me have actually spoken about that. So thank you, Grant and Jason, for that direction. I think the main thing I just wanted to communicate, and this is from learnings in managing various associations and societies, and that is the dependency on an administrator to actually provide strategic direction or to provide leadership to the organization. And then the third part really that links into that is stepping forward in the representative position or mandate from the association to actually represent the profession. And all three of those, I think, are very dangerous spaces to move into. And that just as far as expectations are, prior to you deciding who your administrator is to support the association going forward, I would just strongly implore the leadership and the membership to ensure that, it's most certainly my view, that you don't outsource your leadership, your strategic alignments, or your representation to any other organization, other than the duly elected representatives who are elected by the membership, for the profession and driving that forwards. The role of an administrator would be one to support that from an administrative point of view, scheduling meetings, following up on meetings, minutes of meetings, and so on. But no, most certainly not stepping forwards in a representative or a leadership role in those positions. And I think with that understood and managed going forwards, I think would most certainly align expectations and roles on who needs to do what. So I'm very encouraged by the leadership. I think the original request for this meeting was around unity, but it is my strong opinion that with strong leadership comes the unity and the alignment of the professions and the members behind that leadership to in fact drive the agenda forwards for the discipline. So we'd strongly support that, and if there's any role that we could play as an administrator, we'd be interested to understand that, but most certainly not from a leadership, strategic ownership or representative role. But again, well done. I think the leadership is really stepping up, giving direction. This webinar is exceptionally well attended, and can only bode well for the discipline of orthotics and prosthetics. And I think the AGM is going to be a crucial watershed moment for the profession in how we step that forward and drive that forward. So congratulations, and do let us know if there's any role that ProfNet can play in that. going forwards. I don't know if I hand back to Jason or to Grant for the next agenda item.
Got it. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to all of you for attending this afternoon's discussion. I'm going to be just elaborating and discussing a bit on the SAOPA service provider considerations. And for that, I'm just going to flip over to the PowerPoint presentation that we've got prepared. I just want to hand over to that, share screen. Okay, there we go. So the topics I'm going to cover for today will be a brief history on SAOPA, member concerns that were raised, the service providers and why they are needed, what and who are the service providers, service provider request for proposal and review process, current service provider status, benefits to members, and just to briefly outline the history that we inherited. SAOPA is an association that was started in 1999. And what we found was that the O&P profession needed a formal representative body at all levels, and thus the association was born. As time progressed, the needs of the association and its members evolved and credible experts were required. Various executive committees had managed the association since that inception. When we did a bit of a feasibility study and we touched base with membership with the changeover or the relocation of the head office, there were a few concerns that were voiced to us that we needed to address. Members felt there was no value proposition except for access to a tariff guide. Members felt the website wasn't interactive enough for them. There was a lack of practice management tools available. There was inadequate administrator assistance and support. And there were poor funder engagements and claims payments for all our claims. There was also a lack of understanding on reimbursement models, and this needed to be explored. In terms of service providers, why are service providers needed? Firstly, to successfully manage the association and its processes under the guidance and instruction of its members. The association function is to reduce the pro bono support, which is extruded from non-executive members. And by enhancing the available resources, SAOPA itself can play a more pivotal role in strengthening the practitioner and stakeholder relationship. Service providers will help to improve on financial management and financial viability for long-term sustainability. And there will be a reduction of administrative pressures on volunteers. Ultimately, the role of the service providers would be to assist to enhance, grow, support, and maintain our profession. The service areas that are required to run an organization of this nature are quite vast. And therefore, we need a multifaceted group of experts to come in and assist us with that. For those of you who haven't actually considered what is required to run the association successfully, I've listed a few, well, avenues that we need assistance in, or we need experts to assist us with. That would be the secretariat and administrative function, the membership system, the governance and HPCSA representation, accounting services, legal advisory services and representation, IT infrastructure, web support, and social media maintenance. And most frequently as well would be events management for this kind of industry. With regard for requests for proposals and a review process, we have certain protocols and procedures that are followed. Once a need has been identified, expert service providers related to that are researched and contacted. Meetings are arranged between the service provider and the SAOPA Executive Committee. Discussions are then held to ensure that the most appropriate providers are selected to assist the association and its members. And the service proposal is then supplied to SAOPA to review. Following this, further meetings are held to discuss, negotiate, alter, and very often reject proposals that have been received. This process can be long and tedious, colleagues. As EXCO, ensure that the agreements are thoroughly vetted before agreeing to accept a service proposal. Ultimately, as we want to ensure that the member value proposition is of utmost priority for all of us. I've just added a brief list of some of the service providers that we've engaged since 2015. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with all of these, ranging from Profnet Medical, H. Gordon and Associates, Healthcare Navigator, to name but a few. I'm sure you guys would have seen these names come up regularly in communications and in interactions. In terms of the current service provider status and the way forward, current service providers in use are up for review of their SLAs with SAOPA, and we have already sent out requests for service proposals. These have been issued to various providers for the new year, and we are awaiting responses from the service providers at hand. Once these proposals have been received, the review process will begin again. And the next committee who's in will then have to review all of these agreements and all of these proposals and ultimately decide on what is best to move the association in the forward direction, ultimately for the benefit of all of us. The new service providers will also be sought to improve the association's member offering. Improvement to the membership ultimately is our goal. In terms of benefits to the membership of extensive service provider consideration, review, and implementation, the benefits to us as members is that we have access to medical industry experts leading the industry and offering their services. We have the availability of up-to-date practice management tools and business applications. We have the maintenance of business continuity in practices. We have the continual exposure, upliftment, and improvement of the O&P profession. We have access to affordable service providers for the association and our members. There has been a modernization, should I say, of the systems that are utilized, and improved communication and automation of member services. And finally, in terms of education, we have a lot more access to member education and access to international resources. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just a brief overview of service providers and the considerations and the acquisition of their services. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Adrian. I'm sorry for the mess behind me. Seems like I'm the only one in the office. Anyway, Angela, if you can put up the slideshow of the recruitment, that would be great, the resource recruitment. So with reference to the initial presentation that Grant did with reference to those, let's call it an organogram, I think it's pertinent that there's a requirement for to chief operating officer in terms of the communication between the leadership and the service providers. So the association has identified that position, or the need for that position, and my task is really just to give you a little bit of requirements in terms of that. Angela, I can't see the first slide. There we go. Okay, so the core functions of this position, I've listed it there, and it's pretty much, you will see most of it is to interact the communication and make sure that there's a continuation of what decisions are made, what strategy is made, to make sure that that actually comes into some sort of an action. For that, you would also include, or would have to make use of certain service providers. But it is essential for the chief operating officer or CEO, or call it whatever you want, for these functions to eventually benefit the membership. From previous experience, and you might all know, it's not easy as a full-time practitioner to try and juggle all of these, attending funder engagements, attending stakeholder engagements. It's quite imperative to actually have enough time for that. So just with regards to, if we can run through some of those core functions of this individual, you will see there that, as I say, the most primary or the most pertinent function of that individual would be to coordinate most of these actions and functions within the leadership and the membership. If we can move on to the next slide, just to continue with some of the core functions. There we go. Bradley briefly referred to some of the coding development and requirements, and this person would have to basically oversee and make sure that there's proper communication between the service providers, the experts, and the committees, or the SGs that Grant spoke about earlier. Some additional functions of the CEO would be to coordinate continued profession CPD accreditation. That is not the CPDs that you do for personal compliance, but the actual accreditation of events. Furthermore, that person would have to coordinate the peer review processes and make sure those policies are in place. And furthermore, I think probably the most important, in my opinion, is really just to coordinate all of these professional aspects between those committees or SGs, the leadership and the membership, and obviously the service providers who will provide some support. Just in short, and I really just want to be brief about this, from my own experience, things that will benefit this individual is a sound knowledge of South African environment legislation and regulation within the medical fraternity. That would include acts, Council of Medical, not necessarily knowing that at the tip of your fingers, but at least have a general idea of what it constitutes, so that you know where to go and find the answers if any questions pop up, or if you need to inquire with experts as to go where to find that. The other crucial element for me is the experience of this individual. We've often said that support from service providers who is not an orthotist or prosthetist makes it a bit more challenging, because if we take coding, for example, you need to understand what is involved in professional fees and procedure fees, meaning that you have to have a good understanding that there is a lab necessary times required. So this individual would have to have a good knowledge and experience of the MOP space, especially when engaging with stakeholders. It is one thing to understand the governance part of it, but it's, I think, crucial to understand the actual working of it. Furthermore, it should be a dependable person who is attentive to detail, making sure tasks are completed. Oftentimes, this person would have to take on some leadership functions in terms of taking charge of, and I'm just thinking on my feet, but specifically with regards to these committees. All right, if we can move on to the last slide. There we go. This individual would also have to have quite a strong initiative and a willingness to take on responsibilities and challenges, oftentimes not really necessarily having all of the knowledge of it. Integrity, crucial, being honest and ethical, and we've seen this in our engagements with especially funders and other stakeholders, that you know, being truthful is worth much more than to try and you know, get yourself into a good position. Best practice is always a good idea. Stress tolerance, I can relate to that. Most of you who've known me over the past 5 years, I've been fat, I've been thin, I've had brown hair, I've had grey hair. So stress tolerance is an interesting one, but you obviously need to be in a situation where you can accept criticism and hopefully turn that into something positive. Furthermore, the achievements and efforts, you know, you need to be able to set personal goals and maybe, as I said, mastering tasks that you not necessarily know or that comes naturally. Lastly, self-control. Oftentimes in situations where people have very strong opinions, to try and maintain your composure, keeping your emotions in check. Even though you feel you can strangle somebody, it's always a good idea to rather put a little bit of water on the fire. And lastly, public speaking. And if you're Afrikaans, your English is like airtime, it runs out at some stage, and that's a little bit more difficult, but I must admit, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then lastly, just something to leave you with. Direction is much more important than speed. Many people or many institutions are going fast, but perhaps in the wrong direction. And we've experienced that. And for me, this focus on the solution, not the problem, is the way that you look at it. Possibly also a comparison is to decide whether you want to look at the glass half full or half empty. And I think that is crucial to the success of any entity. Is the attitude that you have towards the challenges that is sitting or that you are facing. So, if that makes any sense for you, the final description and position of the composition of that position will be made available. In the meantime, you are welcome to submit your CVs if you are interested, and we are looking forward to receiving them and having your input with regards to the Chief Operating Officer. Thank you very much, everybody.
Go. Hi, everybody. Back to me. So a line that I really liked used on the CPO forum one day was stand back from your routers, or hold on to your dust masks. I want to discuss a little bit of the association's running costs and have a very rough look at that. So at the AGM, we will discuss the budget and we'll go into more detail. But I think it's quite important that everyone has an idea of running costs within an association. And not that screen. Maybe it is. And you can scroll down so that we've just got it was a Word document, Angela. So I'm just going, so it's a very rough overview, as I said. So the first thing is our administrator. So this is, it could either be ProfNet or Your Hub, and there's various ways that they're structured, and there's been quite a lot of questions around this. So once we've got all the information, we can share it. But the running costs around around the administrator is between 40 and 60,000 Rand a month. Then we've got this position that we're opening up, which is for the COO, and this is going to be essential to our success going forward. I can tell you that for the guys on the NEC, we've most probably been spending on average maybe 4 hours a week. So that's half a day every week on SAOPA stuff. We meet every Tuesday night for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and that then gives us work to be done. So it's extremely demanding. Everyone's got lots of questions. Everyone's got lots of comments. But to do the work is extremely demanding, and we need somebody that we pay, that's accountable, that can do the work. So 35 to 55,000 Rand a month for the COO position. Hasn't been finalized, but there you go. Then we've got external specialists, and these people cost between 1,500 and 2,500 Rand per hour. So if we looked at like the coding specialist, for example, and it's not the one individual, but we'll need various things around it. If we took that at 30 hours a month, and it's a high level individual at 2,000 Rand an hour, that's 60,000 Rand a month. And as I said, this is my rough document. So this would be for the project, not just one individual. And maybe our initial spend would be about 300,000 Rand. And then maybe about 75,000 Rand a year after that, once we all know what we're really doing and we can follow the structures. Then legal advice. We constantly need legal advice for our members, as well as our constitution, as well as all sorts of other things. Hopefully this reduces over time. But we factor in about 16,000 Rand a month for that. Then we've got accounting services at 6 grand a month. We've got the website, the members portal management, that's between 8 and 10 a month. Sometimes this is included with administrators, sometimes not. Then Angela, can we scroll down? We've got other expenses, which are around 6,000 Rand a month. And those expenses might be for indemnity for your board members, like stationery, computer expenses, communication services, whether they're SMSs or telephone. Again, some of these expenses are included with administrators' service level agreements, some of them aren't. So a rough average of these costs is around 200,000 Rand a month. I hope you're standing back from your router. It's a lot of money. And this will vary month from month. But if we look at the SAOPA budget over the years, we're not far off the mark where we need around 2.5 million Rand a year to run an association properly. So this is why we really need members. Obviously, membership fell heavily this year, and that has cost everybody. So if we look at how the breakdown happens, to cover the 2.5 million Rand, 100 members or 100 practices, 25,000 Rand each. That's steep. 200 members, 12.5 grand. And then 250, which is what I think we should be getting, we're down to 10,000 Rand each, which is still a lot of money. But as you can see, running costs are high, and this is why we need everyone to contribute to not only all share the costs listed, but also to participate to ensure that we succeed in our endeavors so that we don't waste any of these valuable resources. So that should give you guys a little bit of an idea of some of the costs around running an association. And I know it seems very high, but money only goes so far, and it's all about the value, not necessarily the cost. So I'm now going to hand over to whomever is next. Things that we need to take into account is the Constitution that was read by those 3 people and 1 non-member. And what's very important for us going forward is that we act within the Constitution so that we cannot find ourselves back down this road where all the I's haven't been dotted and the T's crossed. So the Constitution, and we've spent money, again, this hard-earned money, on legal advice to find out how do we do it. And unfortunately, our Constitution only allows membership either in the beginning of the year or in the middle of the year. So what our hope is, as the NEC, is that we can have everybody's involvement between now and the AGM so that we all structure what the plan is on a public forum, like the CPO forum, that we share information so that we only have one plan to vote for. The whole idea is unity. The whole idea is that we all act together. So we were going to spend a fortune of money and a fortune of time to try vickle the Constitution to allow people to join to vote, which wouldn't have been legal, only to have one plan to vote for. So there's no hidden agenda, there's no secrecy. What we're wanting is everybody to be involved, to set up the committees, to be voted onto a committee, and to be part of a committee doesn't require you to be a SAOPA member. there's only 2 months of the year left. So what we're looking for is membership for 2021. So that we can all be together, and in this space between now and the AGM, that members, non-members, everybody shares and gets involved in creating the plan, the groups, the structure, the et cetera, going forward, and then we can move on with our structure. So I hope that that gives a very broad answer to that question. I was thinking that at the end we will do more on Q&A where we can actually vocally respond. Grant, I see that you are up for a bit of a response.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
So yes, so to answer that, or just to add to Jason's answer there a little bit, is that it would have been so much easier if we could just grant membership and voting rights to all non-members. But the important thing is that we cannot fall foul and we cannot have distractions going forward. I mentioned that in my little talk that this year's been full of distraction. We can't afford to have even one member put up their hand in April next year and say, I don't think you followed due process, proper governance and that lot. And then suddenly we have to put our tail between our legs and undo everything we want to do. The bottom line is this: even if there are 150 potential members out there, we want all those members to contribute towards the building of the structure. So I call it the home. So we want you to design your home and help build your home, so that come the AGM, there's no difference between the 90 or higher voting members we have on SAOPA. We all actually want the same thing. So even if the other 100 or 150 potential members aren't able to vote due to the constitution, the same structure, the framework, the same plan, the same home has been built. So everybody should be free to attend the AGM, but you may not necessarily be able to vote, but you should be able to see the plan that you have contributed to, the constitution you have helped to write and build, the roadmap you have given your inputs to. We've seen a whole lot of questions come through. So Pierre, I hope this is also answering your question. Build the home and then watch it get voted into place and then join. So the end product should be exactly the same, whether you are able to vote on it or not. And that has been the thing. We had to re-engineer the way we approach it so we stay within the laws. So the bottom line, the takeaway message is, again, we need your involvement, even if you cannot vote. Help to build the structure you want and then watch it get voted into place. And then you've got it. And then you can join, knowing that the body is formed. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. I just want to add to that. I think there's also a little bit of confusion with regards to non-members being able to nominate potential candidates for committees and leadership going forward. And I think the idea is really, we've mentioned this before, and you've said it a few times before, that this is crucial as part of the building of the so-called home. And there will be an opportunity for anybody to nominate anybody who they feel would be a good candidate for a position. And we have established that there may be ways around that, in terms of getting those people into the leadership. Obviously you're going to have to pay your membership fees for 2021, but for the moment, the big concern or the big problem seems to be that there's a assumption that if you are a non-member, that you cannot participate in nominating potential candidates. So I hope that also clears a little bit of the confusion, and Pierre, to your question, hopefully answer your question also.
Excellent, thank you, Tanya. Heinrich, Eunice, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or anything more to question.
Just give a seat. Okay. Yep.
No video.
I don't see video.
You're on. You're on.
Yes, yeah, no, that's understood. It sounds fine to us.
Excellent. Excellent.
You're going to say something?
So I just want to clarify. So if you're a non-member, you are allowed to nominate who you want to be part of leadership. So, but only members can then vote on your nomination. Do I understand this correctly?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. So how are we going to involve all the other people that are on this now? So we are 135 participants. How are we all going to be involved? Because most of us are now not part of the voting process, and it seems there's not a way that we can really get into that now. So how are we going to involve all of us? So we need everyone's input, which I agree, and we have a wonderful structure that we want to get to. I just want to know how we're going to cross that bridge to now get into everyone that's on this and that's really willing to help and do the job. How are we going to all tie all of this together and get that going in the right direction?
Okay, so maybe Angela, this is now a good time to run that poll with the SGs or committees. And this is really where everybody needs to put up their hands and maybe just complete that poll. I think in essence, Eunice, if I try and answer it as, you know, as simply as I possibly can, you know, whatever the structure is, whatever the committees are that we as a group, as a unity group, or as a profession, I mean, we're all after the same thing. So as a profession, you know, we need to identify the individuals that we feel that can participate, and obviously you are going to decide whether you want to be on these committees. And this is really where we're going to start. And we're going to use this time between the webinar now and the AGM to flesh out some of that. So I hope that makes a bit of sense to you.
So just most probably to add, and I battle with quiet moments, so I will just say some more, is we need all the names to be put forward. And what will happen is, at the moment, the Unity group, which is made up of guys like Heinrich, Eunice, you're on that group, Rian, Eugene, a whole big group, and we will then have to work out how we can include everybody. As Grant said, we're trying our best to figure out a way, if somebody's nominated into leadership, and they're a great candidate but not a member, we'll have to work out how to make that happen. But unfortunately, this is the result of what has happened this year, and we can't override the Constitution. The effect of forming the forum, or forming a breakaway group, was to bring about change. I'm sure everybody out there can agree that this is definitely change. We've never had something like this as involved and as inclusive and as transparent within our association. And now we have to put our money where our mouth is. We have to nominate people. We have to put out names. And once we've got that list, and the current leadership in the Unity group will then work through these nominations and share it with everybody on both SAOPA's communication portal and the CPO forum, which hopefully now we're all one. Please volunteer to be a committee member. It's your future.
Jason, we'll just leave a few more minutes to finish the poll on the committee volunteers.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I just come in there for a moment?
Sure, Grant.
So I think also, just to answer further to Eunice's question, so we've, and if the membership doesn't know, I'm sure they all know, but as you did mention, Jason, we've got this Unity group. So this Unity group, let's call it is the combination of the CPO forum and so-called SAOPA NEC. So on that Unity group is where we envisage, you know, constructing and fine-tuning this plan going forward. And we don't have much time. We've got a week to 10 days now to really get down and to present this. and to send it out so that we can be in time so that it can be adopted at the AGM. So if everybody does partake, the feedback will be via the CPO form, via SAOPA membership, all into the so-called unity group. So the representatives on both sides are all sitting around the same table in building the structure, which then we need to vote on and agree that that is what we want to adopt at the AGM. So it's a, I don't want to call it a murky way of doing it, because you're going to vote directly for it, but in essence, you are building it. So that's exactly what needs to be done. That's the whole a reason for establishing this unity group, where you have leaders from both sides of the fence now sitting around together. So it should just be called, it should be simple that once this thing is built, it's going to get adopted, and then, as I said, we all join because it is what we've asked for.
Thanks, Grant.
Yeah. Am I on? Can I say something? Yes. Yes, I do think that if we, if nominations can be made for candidates, I really think that everybody should participate. If you come to an AGM and you know what, say for instance, only 75 or 80 or 90 people can vote, I don't think it's going to make a difference, because everybody is communicating via the forum, and everybody is on forum. So whatever those people are going to communicate, going to vote, is what the majority is going to want. And then even if we step into the new year, because we have the forum and because we've got the communication, we will be able to, in a way, steer the direction where this association is going. So I don't think that it's going to make a difference if only 80 of the people can vote. Yes. Can't make that much of a difference, because the forum will still exist before and after the AGM. That's all. Thank you.
100%, Heinrich. Completely agree with you. And what's important is that we have involvement now in terms of putting those structures in place. The AGM should be something that is agreed and voted on. It shouldn't be a surprise. Every year we should be telling people what we're going to be voting on at the AGM. So there's time to think about it. There can be a debate around it. And then when we get to the AGM, it's a show of hands, and it's fulfilling the constitutional obligations. It shouldn't be something that's just sprung on anybody at any year. So that's what we're hoping to do, and we're just working within the limitations of where we're at the moment.
Yes, and then also I see that I also see that some of the comments have been coming through on Jason. I think you actually answered it about the NEC, National Executive Committee, the next participation on the forum, which I think, and I think you guys said that you will participate in it. So yes, that would be nice for us to do that going forward, to have you guys a little bit more on board and interacting with 240 CPOs.
Yeah, and I think that would be good going forward, and we might actually get to address some of these questions which we don't get to address today on that platform.
Yes, great.
Tanya, did you want to say something? Saw your camera flash.
I wanted, but I decided against it. Thanks.
Okay. Sometimes that's also a good idea. All right. So what is our next?
Jason, I don't know if you want me to go through some of these questions. I think we've basically covered most of them. Angela, I'm not sure if there's any that I missed that we need to address. Most of it has been answered in the Q&A in the type box. So if there's any more questions that we haven't answered, I'm just going to quickly scroll through this and see if I can find anything. I think but that has been addressed, the question of how non-members can be, allowed to vote, but that I think has been addressed properly. There was one question with regards to the MPI. Jason, you also answered that. If you want to maybe elaborate on that for a second.
So there was a question regarding whether, if there's a change in our service provider, whether there's a change in the MPI. So the service provider and medical malpractice are two separate entities. It's the service provider has negotiated potentially to get a better tariff with regards to the numbers of people that will join a medical malpractice insurance, but it's not the service provider that's offering the insurance. So as far as I'm aware, and I stand under correction, the medical malpractice is not attached to the service provider. And, you know, again, there's been a lot of questions around service providers. The idea for us going forward is not to have favoritism, but to have interrogated options. So, you know, we've all got a good relationship with Profnet. We've, as the NEC, Angela from Your Hub came on very late and has been amazing at assisting us. But it's not about either of them. It's about us as a profession and where we're going to get the services that we require at an affordable rate. And what will be, you know, proposals went out, responses have been received. It will be considered again by the full Unity group in terms of exactly what we provided or what services we are offered at what cost. Once the group has made some sort of summary, we can then share that with everybody. But the idea is for us always to have options, for it not to be a one-horse race, so that we can make sure that we get what we need, and also to make sure that services that are specialist to those people are sought, so that we might have one person offering one part of a service and somebody else something else that might be more specialist to them. But medical malpractice is one of them, and you know there will most probably be two options to go with potentially. I hope that helps answer the question.
Right. Yes. Can I say one more thing about this this voting rights at AGM? Because I see it doesn't stop. This keeps on scrolling. So yeah, and what we know we've learned is, you know, just to put something to bed like that and not discuss it, you know, is not so great. So maybe if I could suggest that we add you guys onto the forum, and then maybe tomorrow or for the next day or three, because you know there's all sorts of suggestions and alternatives. Maybe we just open the floor and just discuss it a little bit, just so we can properly deal with it and put it to rest and move forward if it's okay with you guys.
So sure, again, I seem to be responding on behalf of everybody. I think all questions can be sent to Grant. No, only joking. I think what we need to do, Heinrich, is maybe to correlate the questions. So let people submit the questions the same as these. So that one's not necessarily on the spot to answer them, so that we can answer them factually and clearly. We can definitely do it over the forum, but I think also, I mean, you've experienced it, how, you know, you can lose a whole day while you're standing ready to grind something and you're answering question after question after question. So if we can correlate all the questions and the suggestions, even if they're on the forum, and then as a group, our little NEC group meets tomorrow evening. We can maybe run through them, draft the answers, and send them on. And then I'm also very happy, you know, that we as a group, you know, with you and I sitting on the same side, can respond to a lot of these questions. You know, I think that's very important, that the objective is for us to find agreement in how we're going to do things. It's not my way or your way. It's what's going to be best for all of us. So I do think that as a group, we can maybe try field those questions. And if we can find a way to make it work better for all of us, then let's do that. But let's not, again, we've got to focus on what the big issues are. And we're all experiencing the same issues. So we've got to make sure that we don't make it too difficult for us to actually deal with the issues at hand because of feelings of doubt or mistrust. I think that's
I have no doubt or mistrust. I think we, I'm happy to go with whatever you guys are saying, but I know if I read the comments, there actually are people that are inquiring. So I think we just discussed it, and because we have discussed it in length for more than a week, but nobody has discussed it with anybody else. So maybe we discuss it with the other people a little bit, so they understand what we've been looking at and what we've been dealing with. So let's just do it.
I'm in agreement. I think the more active participation we have going forward in a positive direction, the better. So if we need to address burning questions, let's address them. But at the same time, I want to ask all of those that ask the questions, please put your hand up and join a committee. Volunteer to be a leader. Don't just ask questions, come be part of the solution and provide the answers. Cool. So I think on that note, whoopsie. I think on that note, we can look at wrapping this up unless there's any other burning issues that need to be discussed. It's a long day on a Monday, so a little bit of a call to action. If we just revisit some of the stuff that we've gone through, is please read the Constitution and add your comments. All these restrictions that we placed on at the moment are because of the Constitution. That is what governs us. So a link will be sent out. Might even send Grant's nice little video again. But please read the Constitution and add your comments. The comments have to be in. There's a certain amount of time before the AGM, so we've already stretched that line. We can't stretch it anymore. Read the Constitution, add your comments. This is the time. This Constitution is needed to be adopted, I think something like 6 years ago, 12 years ago. I can't even remember, but a long time ago. This is the time. Changes are being made. We spent a fortune with legal fees to get it to happen. Then the volunteers and nominations for leadership and committees. Remember, this is not restricted to only SAOPA members. So please put your names forward. Put your names forward. You can't complain if you don't get involved. Then the AGM is going to happen on the 30th of November. So there will be more communication around this. It's going to happen from the comfort of your workshop, your office chair. It's all going to be virtual. So everybody can take part and be in this AGM, and there will be some workshops involved. Membership consideration. We need everyone to join. There's strength in numbers. It reduces costs. It improves involvement and accountability. So please, for 2021, we please need everyone involved. And then the request for CVs, all of this information will go out again, but a request for CVs, should you feel that you're a good candidate for the COO, the Chief Operating Officer for our association. This is going to be a key position to ensure that we move forward positively. So on that note, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being involved. Thank you for your interest in your professional future, and for us all to join hands and form a strong link to deal with things. Thank you very, very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.